Dr. Barton has come from ETSU, and she's going to talk about mindset. Hopefully, I haven't seen it, so I'm interested to see it too, but hopefully you'll hear some things that I've told you before. Maybe not, but maybe from this point forward, the vocabulary that we use in here, or the way that we talk about math, I want it to change. Not just in here, but in the world at large, but this is what I can affect today. So, Dr. Barton.
Good morning. No, we don't need to. I'm not a clap-worthy kind of person. I teach out at the College of Education at ETSU, but what I tend to teach out there is psychology stuff, because learning and teaching actually involves a lot of psychology. So my background is in psychology, and Mr. Pavick believes so much in the idea of mindset, which is what I'm going to be talking to you about today. Actually, you're going to be talking about it more than me. That he was willing to give up a class day to help you learn a little bit more about it. And I believe in it so much that I was willing to spend the first day of my spring break right here at Young. So that's how much we think this is an important concept for you all to learn. Now, by benefit of what I do teach when it comes to psychology and teaching and learning, I happen to know and believe that students learn better when they're active rather than just passive listeners. So instead of me standing here talking at you for 45, 50 minutes, I'm going to have you all doing a lot more of the talking and thinking and processing, which is why I asked Mr. Pavick to put you together into small groups. And what we're going to be doing is something called a POGL activity. You don't really need to know what the POGL stands for, but it's really just a process where you work together in teams for short periods of time through some questions. We're going to be go through a little bit of a pattern. So we'll look at what I'm loosely calling a model. In this case, it'll be short video clips mostly, one quotation. You'll work with your groups through a series of questions that you're going to be answering that are on a worksheet. I'm going to give you here in a second. And then we'll come back together and talk about the answers to a few of those, then move on to the next model. So that's just so you know what to expect. I'll just mess myself up. All right, so what you will notice on the front of this worksheet, speaking of teams, is that I'm going to get you all some roles. So if you would please have a look at the bottom of the top page of your worksheet. You will see that there's an alphabet, or an allusion to the alphabet, and some roles. So what I'm asking you to do is alphabetize your first names, and then based on that order, you will take the roles in the order they are listed. So whoever is alphabetically first by first name, you're going to be the manager.
Yes.
Got it? The manager does not actually have any power. I'm sorry to tell you, but you get a 100% pay raise. Spokesperson will be next, reader, and if you have a fourth person, there's a consensus builder there. You can see what your roles, what your responsibilities for those roles will be. Important to note, manager, you need to keep track of your time. And reader, when you get to the questions that we'll be talking about, I want you to read those questions out loud. That helps your team to know exactly where you are, what you're talking about. Everybody's all together on the same page. All right? So we're going to start with, look at that. That's so handy. We're going to start with Model 1, and I got to come back here and get to that video. It's a short little clip about the brain, and it's noteworthy that this came from Australian, so you're going to hear just a slightly different accent as we listen to this. Don't be thrown. Oh, maybe it's Scottish. It's an odd little accent. We got good. I didn't test the sounds. You ready?
So, the brain is vast, but it can't do it alone. It depends upon lots of microscopic cells called neurons, over 100 billion of them in fact, that select messages flow backwards and forwards between the brain and body. Each neuron has tiny branches that let it connect to other neurons. When you're learning things, electrical messages travel from one neuron to another, over and over. Eventually, the brain starts to create connections or pathways between the neurons, so things become easier and you can do them better and better. Think back to the first time you rode a bike. Your brain had to think about pedaling, staying balanced, steering with the handlebars, watching the road and braking, all at once. Hard work having to think about all these things at the same time. But eventually, as you got more practice, the neurons sent messages backwards and forwards until a pathway was created in your brain. Now you can ride your bike without thinking about it because the neurons have successfully created a bike riding pathway. Creating these neural pathways is how you learn and remember things. So, the more you use your brain to create these pathways, the more you will learn.
Okay, so managers, take a look at your watches. I'm going to see how 4 minutes does, okay? So I'm going to give you 4 minutes to work through the questions. On the second sheet of if you turn it over, you'll see a little picture of what we just watched. And there's some questions after it. Just go to that first stop sign. And readers, you will start off by reading those questions out loud. Go.
The cell is the brain.
I don't know.
Okay. You are honest. When learning occurs, what happens among cells of the brain?
It makes connections.
They talk to each other.
That's what I learned. What happens in your cells of the brain?
What are some things that each of you has strong neutral pathways? That is, what are some of the things you have learned so well?
To get
What are some things that each of you have strong neural
What are some
pathways?
things that each
Wait,
of
what
you
was
Is what are some
two makes
connections?
connections?
Things you have learned.
Have
so
strong
well.
Yes.
pathways for. That is, what are some things you have learned so well?
I'm just joking. Don't say too close to you.
That's a good one.
If you understand your professor trying to play a simple tune, what would you tell her?
I heard of it.
If a new piano student becomes frustrated trying to play a simple note, what would you tell them?
I know how to eat without choking. Don't laugh at me.
What is the implication of number one for you as a student? That is, what can you take from model one?
Yeah.
How do you do a practice?
I mean, that's.
I started I did.
Good job, team. I'm proud of you.
Mr. Hall. I know Mr.
What?
Hall. Sorry, someone just texted me.
No, that's okay, Abraham, one second.
You said you were coming to after school tutoring the other day. You weren't there. I waited. It was like Thursday, I think. You said, I'll be there after school day. Me and like 5 other people were all sitting in the library till like 3:30. Waiting on you. You never came.
I don't feel like I would have told you that.
You did. You told the whole class.
Ever I have tutoring on Thursday.
That's what I do. You told the class. And so I came
Maybe
over
you
and
meant to take drive time and you said tutoring.
you said, you said I have tutoring and after school tutoring. And so I was like, okay, I'll read it.
Are you sure I
For
didn't?
the test, is the next for the
Are you
test.
sure I didn't say there is after school tutoring?
No, you said I'll be there for because
I
we were there for you.
think I said there's tribe time. I have to
We
say
were
tribe
there.
time.
You
Well, I
guys are
apologize.
being recorded, you better pipe it down.
Because me and like 5 other people were like,
I know, Maya sent me the message on
Okay. I am seeing that most of us are done or are on the last question, so we'll go ahead and come back together here and talk about a couple of things. So what sorts of things do you feel like you have strong neural pathways for already? I'm sorry? Music, if you're a musician?
Yes.
So playing music? Yes. What?
Driving.
Driving. Oh, and I saw one happening as we were processing information. All right, driving, texting, playing an instrument if you play an instrument. All very good ideas. So if somebody were frustrated, a new piano student, what would you tell them based on what we know just from this first model? What do we know?
Practice.
Practice. Why?
Because it'll be easier after a while. If you
Okay.
remember how to do it.
It will become easier after a while. Why is that? Not neutrons, neurons.
Neurons.
There we go. We're in a different class. This is biology instead of chemistry. So yes, neurons will, the connections and the pathways will become more and more used, and the more that happens, like paving a road, okay, it becomes easier to drive. So what about you? What does this mean for you as a student? This is kind of a tough question early in the morning.
Practice makes perfect.
Practice makes perfect. Only when you drive, only when you text.
Can be applied to anything.
Could be applied to anything. Music to my ears. Okay, yes, it could be applied to anything, including algebra 2. Right? So let's move on.
I know, they're all looking skeptically back at me.
Oh, well, we're getting there. All right, we're getting there, including algebra 2. All right, so let's move on to Model 2. Model 2 is not a video, it's just a quotation from Dr. Maya Angelou. So readers, what I'd like for you to do is start off by reading that quotation, and then if you would please work through those 2 questions down to the stop sign. I'm again going to give you 4 minutes. You may finish sooner than that. So if I notice that several teams are done, we will stop earlier than that. So go ahead.
Okay, you may encounter many defeats, but you must not be defeated. In fact, it may be necessary to encounter the defeat so you can know who you are, what you can rise from, and how you can still come out of it. What is the difference between defeat and being defeated?
Defeat is like a new problem. Defeat is
What is the difference between
What's the difference between
Let's read it out.
Small battle.
being defeated.
When you lost a battle.
Yeah.
It's not a sure thing. It's a possibility.
Defeat.
It says defeat. Being defeated is your defeat is a theoretical idea.
That was inspirational, Nehemiah.
Why is it important to encounter?
Why might it be important to encounter defeat according to Model 3? Your team can collaborate on your own ideas as well. So that way
Yeah.
you can like
Why might it be important to encounter defeat according to Model 3? Your team can elaborate with your own ideas.
Because the obvious that if you face more challenges, you can become stronger.
Why is it might be important to encounter defeat?
But I'm very strict. That makes me wonder if this is what college is like. This is what college is like. I might actually have some hope in this.
Sounds like a personal problem.
Forgot how it's
So if you're not quite done, that's cool, because we'll talk about it together anyhow. What's the difference between defeat and being defeated? Spokesperson?
A defeat is the battle, and then if you lose the battle, you still win the war.
Okay, so we have the battle versus the war analogy. So defeat is losing a battle, but not the war. Being defeated is kind of losing the whole thing. Maybe? Okay, anybody want to elaborate? Add to? I know you do.
You learn from defeats, but if you are defeated,
If you are defeated, what?
you just give up and you could win eventually.
Okay, so you give up. If the computer were easier to access, I'd be typing these ideas down under here, but it isn't, so. Well. Anything else? So defeat is sort of a one-time thing. Being defeated is throwing in the towel, maybe? Is that kind of where we went with that? Well, I don't know how to use a smartphone. That would require me to be proficient in technology and education. Thank you, though.
You're welcome.
I type faster. Okay. First thought. Do I have to erase that to move
No.
forward? Can you move me forward one? Okay, thanks. So why is it important to encounter defeat?
So you can learn from it.
So you can learn from it? Anything else? At this table. What'd you all say?
I said, you learn more about yourself, your weaknesses, and how you go about solving them.
You learn more about yourself and the things that maybe you need to work on, your weaknesses. So raise your hand if you love failure. I love it. Woo! Me and a half gallon of ice cream, love failure. Nobody likes to fail, but it can be a really valuable learning experience. So that's good. All right, I'm going to move back to the next model. Now we're going to walk through in a series of short segments. We're going to be looking at what's called a TED Talk. I'm not sure if you're familiar with TED Talks. I love them in a nervous kind of way. And this is a TED Talk about mindset. So we're going to watch 3 or 4 segments of this short, couple minute segments. Pay attention as you watch, and we'll be processing the information you see in these. This speaker's name is Eduardo Branchino. He's going to be talking about someone else named Josh Waitskin.
What do you think is the key to achieving our goals, our success? Some people suggest things like hard work, focus, persistence. But research shows these are all byproducts of something else, something much more powerful that we can all develop. It is this very special something that really is critical to success, and is what I'm here to discuss with you today. Someone who has achieved great success is Josh Waitskin, a chess international master and the subject of the movie Searching for Bobby Fischer. Nobody has won all the national chess championships that Josh has. But even more impressive, when he turned 21, he took on the challenge of mastering something completely new and very different from chess: martial arts. He realized that he had learned how to grow and succeed, and he could apply that understanding to other domains. And so, he devoted himself relentlessly to Tai Chi Chuan, and after lots of hard work, many failures, and some broken joints, he became a great martial artist, and he won 2 world championships. Now he's off to Jiu-Jitsu. So what does Josh say is the greatest thing that ever happened to him? Believe it or not, he says, losing my first national chess championship, because it helped me avoid many of the psychological traps. The key trap that Josh avoided was believing that he was special, that he was smarter than other people, and that he didn't have to work hard. He could have thought of himself as a prodigy, but he doesn't think that he has extraordinary intelligence. He says, the moment we believe that success is determined by an ingrained level of ability, we will be brittle in the face of adversity. Josh often quotes Stanford professor Carol Dweck, who discovered that some people see intelligence or abilities as fixed, what is called a fixed mindset, while other people see them, as Josh does, as qualities that can be developed, a growth mindset. More important, Dr. Dweck discovered that these two different mindsets lead to very different behaviors and results. In a study she did with Dr. Lisa Blackwell, several hundred 7th graders were surveyed to determine which mindset each student had, and then they were tracked for 2 years. Results showed that the students with a growth mindset, those who thought they could change their own intelligence, increased their grades over time, while those with a fixed mindset did not. You can see the trend. The gap in performance just widens and widens over time. The difference between these two groups? A different perspective on intelligence.
All right, things are supposed to stop. All right, so managers, it's just 3 questions. I'm going to see how we do in 3 minutes this time. And so readers, take it away.
Okay, according to Mr.
Great job.
Did Josh say, what did Josh say was the most important thing that happened in his career?
Was the most important thing that happened to him in his career. Why?
We still aim thing to be a national champion.
One time I was in chess club and I didn't know what it was.
Do you still not have any idea?
Because it taught him that it wasn't.
Quit the chess club because I didn't know what it was.
Did you get like one meeting and just like, I'm done?
How does the answer to number 1 of our relate to the quotations from Maya Angelou and Donald Sue?
But he had to actually work with players.
He dealt with defeat and not like being defeated.
Pretty good sense of
From
just click them stay.
You can hit the play in the hall up here, if that's helpful. You know, it's using more practice.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
How's the Andrew number 1?
How does Andrew number 1 about relates to relationships and
Your explains that you already
Can you use
have
that
about fixed
failure
on a
to
certain thing with your growth mindset.
the one that
Your thinking will constantly change.
yeah. Mark here. These schools. What is the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset?
So growth is like you're open to anything to
Like a fixed mindset is like focused on one thing and then one thing.
Are you tapping to see if you get it?
Very good. Everybody seems to be kind of jotting down some ideas to that last question. So, how did what Josh Waitskin said relate to our quote from Maya Angelou?
It's what he did basically.
Is what he did. So can you elaborate just a little bit?
Yeah, he learned from himself through losing the championship and realized that he wasn't perfect.
Okay.
He could still experience growth.
Okay, so he kind of took the idea of defeat and worked with it, right? Anything else? Anybody else want to elaborate? We're on that. Really, we're on that. Yeah, we're on that first question. Second question. Anything else? Fine. You have outweighed me. So what's the difference then between, so far far, what do we know is the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset? Just from the little bit he's shared so far at this talk.
A fixed mindset is to never trying to grow, and a growth mindset is to never give up.
Okay. Never try to grow versus never give up. Any other ways we could put it?
It's like this way of, I guess, maybe subconscious, but just the way that you look at the world in general.
Okay,
Like fixed people believe that they just are how they are, and their brain works is they don't think that they can progress forward.
Okay, so it's maybe not something you sit and think about consciously, but it's this belief system that you have what you have, and that's it. Okay? So, how many of you think you are a math person? Raise your hand. How many of you could be a math person? There we go. All right, so the truth of the matter is, there's a fixed mindset about a lot of different things. Some people may not feel that they are natural artists, and therefore they can't learn art. Right? That is actually not true. And if I had remembered to bring my book, I could have shown you some before and after pictures, drawings by people who thought they didn't know how to draw, and they just need to learn the proper way. Some people think they're not musicians. It's not true. You can learn. So, I'm old, so I know who that guy is. Does anybody else know who that guy is? John McEnroe. John McEnroe is a poster child for fixed mindset. He gets used a lot in the book about mindset because he was a tennis player in the 70s and 80s, well known for his temper, and well known for blaming anything and anyone besides himself whenever he had a loss. Okay, fits on the court, got thrown out a few times because he yelled at the judges. So what's the danger of thinking that success is determined by an ingrained level of ability? That means something that's internal. What's the danger of thinking that if you're, it's just a matter of whether you're born with it or not?
Because if you're not, you won't try it. If you think you're not, you won't try it.
Yes. If you think you don't have it, you won't even try. That's one danger. The other is if you think you do have it, then when you hit obstacles, that becomes a challenge. So we're going to learn more about that now as we look at the next segment of our TED Talk.
Other studies have shown similar effects for our mindset about other abilities, like problem solving, playing sports, managing people, or anything else you'd like. Dancing la Macarena. The key to success is not simply effort or focus or resilience, but it is the growth mindset that creates them. The mindset itself is critical. Research shows that when we directly try to build grit or persistence, it is not nearly as effective as addressing the mindset that underlies them. How many of us think of ourselves as not math people, or creative, or sociable, or athletic? Or conversely, that we're naturals? If we're to fulfill our potential, we have to start thinking differently. We have to realize that we're not chained to our current capabilities. Neuroscience shows that the brain is very malleable, and we can change our own ability to think and to perform. In fact, many of the most accomplished people of our era were thought of by experts to have no future. People like Charles Darwin, Lucille Ball, Marcel Proust, and many others. But they, along with all great achievers, from Mozart to Einstein, built their abilities. But the key insight that I would like you to walk away with today is that when we realize that we can change our own abilities, when we have a growth mindset, we bring our game to new levels. So how does a growth mindset do that? It turns out that there are physiological manifestations to mindset. Brain scans show that for people with a fixed mindset, the brain becomes most active when receiving information about how the person performed, such as a grade or a score. But for people with a growth mindset, the brain becomes most active when receiving information about what they could do better next time. In other words, people with a fixed mindset worry the most about how they're judged, while those with a growth mindset focus the most on learning. There are other consequences of mindset. People with a fixed mindset see effort as a bad thing, something that only people with low capabilities need, while those with a growth mindset see effort as what makes us smart, as the way to grow. And when they hit a setback or failure, people with a fixed mindset tend to conclude that they're incapable. So to protect their ego, they lose interest or withdraw. We observe that as lack of motivation, but behind it is a fixed mindset. Whereas people with a growth mindset understand that setbacks are part of growth. So when they hit one, they find a way around it, like Josh Waitzkin did when he lost in chess or in martial arts.
Alrighty. So once again, let's give you 3 minutes to work on those next 3 questions. So go ahead, readers.
According
to Mr. His name, what are some characteristics of people who have fixed minds?
Sorry.
They don't like effort.
A characteristic that would fall with fixed mindset would be how they're judged. Like they're obsessed with success.
If someone just said,
Some characteristics of people who have a growth mindset.
What are some characteristics of people who have a growth mindset?
They basically are like open to anything
And willing to try new things. Not,
What are some
not
characteristics of
necessarily
people who
strengths.
have a growth mindset?
Why would you, which would you conclude is the better mindset to have?
growth mindset. They need to have a growth mindset about my homework.
What are some characteristics?
Anything better than 0.
Yeah, you're right.
Looks for improvement.
The reason I have a seat here, I don't know.
Really?
They work their own problems. I've not made anything
Which would you conclude is a better mindset to have and which one you want?
Excessive, that way you are obsessed with success.
So, I need to take it for religion.
It's kind of like a must here.
So what'd you change?
You have all this pressure on you. You're good at something and be successful.
Okay, so let's talk about fixed mindset versus growth mindset. What are some differences there that we see? I'm going to stay back here. Just holler them out.
Fixed, they don't like effort.
I'm going to draw instead of break.
Oh, it's the,
I apologize.
it's the thing about,
Okay, so I'm sorry. Could you repeat that? Because I was distracted.
Fixed mindsets don't put too much effort into things.
Okay, effort is bad. Bad. Okay. So let's contrast that with growth mindset. Another team, what does that mean about growth mindset?
They put in a lot of effort
They put in a lot of effort. Why?
because they want to fix their problems and make it better.
Okay. Fix their problems, but more than that, effort is the way to learn. Okay. Thank you. Awesome. What about some other contrasts? Either side, it can be growth or fixed mindset. I'll click over.
Look, with the fixed mindset, they look at how they are judged.
Okay.
And with growth mindset, they look for improvement.
They look for,
Improvement.
okay. I'm gonna just insert another word in there to help get to improvement. They look for feedback to help them improve, right? Okay. All right, anything else? We definitely heard one more thing about fixed mindset. What happens when you hit an obstacle?
They lose interest.
They lose interest, or they look like they lose interest. What they're really doing is protecting their ego, right? Okay, and instead, people with a growth mindset do what?
They try to find like a loophole to like improve it.
Okay, so they look at ways to get over, it's a challenge that they work to overcome. Great. Okay, so based on what we have talked about so far, what would we say is the better mindset? Probably. Growth mindset. Okay, thank goodness, because I actually gave this talk to some faculty at a small private college, and some of them, or at least one of them, still really wanted to say that fixed mindset was better because some students just need to know when they need to stop. And I'm here to tell you, that's not really very good to believe that. Because if you think you have a limit, believe me, that's where you will stop. But you don't need to. Okay? So one last video clip that we will work on with the worksheet. It's the end of his talk. And I need you to be very alert and attentive to this because he fires through these things very quickly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play it once and then I'm going to play it a second time because it's hard to keep up with him with these ideas about changing your mindset. So listen carefully and try to catch what you didn't hear the first time on the second round.
There's a lot that we can do to change mindsets. But here are 3 things that any of us can do to instill a growth mindset in ourselves and in those around us. First, recognize that the growth mindset is not only beneficial, but it's also supported by science. Neuroscience shows that the brain changes and becomes more capable when we work hard to improve ourselves. Second, learn and teach others about how to develop our abilities. Learn about deliberate practice and what makes for effective effort. When we understand how to develop our abilities, we strengthen our conviction that we're in charge of them. And third, listen for your fixed mindset voice. And when you hear it, talk back with a growth mindset voice. If you hear, I can't do it, add, yet. My request to you today is that you share this knowledge about the growth mindset with your family, friends, and schools, so that all of us can go and fulfill our potential. Thank you. Beyond. There's a lot that we can do to change mindsets, but here are 3 things that any of us can do to instill a growth mindset in ourselves and in those around us. First, recognize that the growth mindset is not only beneficial, but it's also supported by science. Neuroscience shows that the brain changes and becomes more capable when we work hard to improve ourselves. Second, learn and teach others about how to develop our abilities. Learn about deliberate practice and what makes for effective effort. When we understand how to develop our abilities, we strengthen our conviction that we're in charge of them. And third, listen for your fixed mindset voice. And when you hear it, talk back with a growth mindset voice. If you hear, I can't do it, add, yet.
All right. So, just 2 minutes on those last 2 questions because you probably were jotting down some notes already on that first one. So readers, take it away. Help each other fill in what you missed on that first question.
What can we do to change our mindset?
Organize growth.
Yep.
Imagine you studied pretty hard for a
And then
test.
I put growth.
How would you respond when you were in growth mindset? What would you say?
You don't know how to do like that. You're like, oh yeah,
Way of studying.
let's practice.
Did you get that spokesperson?
Yes, I got it. I didn't even go to severe. Robinson for 1 year.
Guess like
No, I went to Robinson my 8th grade year. I was in Catholic.
so imagine that you studied pretty hard for a test and got a 4th grade. How would you respond using the growth mindset? Yeah. What did you say and what did you do? No?
I'm just saying, think about before class started and you were talking about your test scores. So how could you have responded,
I'll do better next time.
and how did you respond?
You need to have
I
zero
suck,
emotion.
and I
You were,
don't know
your little
anything
fixed
about
mindset
the
voice was.
process.
Okay, fantastic. So, what can we do to change our mindsets if we catch ourselves?
Work hard.
Work hard? That certainly supports a growth mindset. What might we do to help change ourselves from a fixed mindset into a more of a growth mindset?
Recognize that we can change.
That's a really great first step. Recognize that we can change. Awesome. What else?
Learn how to change, and that is good practice.
Oh, thank you. That's that second one, and it's really hard to catch. Learn how to change and learn what's good practice. He talked about something called effective effort. So sometimes when you study, and you don't do well, you're like, well, heck, that was a waste of my time. But maybe what happened was part of the way you were studying wasn't effective. So going back and trying to figure out what's effective can be very helpful. And what else? One more thing to change our mindsets.
Speak in a growth mindset voice.
Speak in a growth mindset voice. So when you tell yourself, I can't do this, add the word yet. Very nice. Just remind yourself, if you catch yourself, that it is something you can do. You just got to put the effort, the effective effort into it. So what would you say if you studied really hard for a test, didn't do so well? I don't want the first thing you'd say, because I know what that would be. I want the second thing you'd tell yourself, if you had a growth mindset voice.
Maybe I could look for a more effective way to study.
Look for a more effective way to study, and what were you saying? Find a new way, have a positive mindset, you might do better. Terrific. And what would you tell yourself if you did well on that test? If you had a growth mindset? More than good job, but you weren't giving yourself a mental high five.
Do the same thing you did if you lost.
Which is what?
Figure out what you did wrong and then you can do better next time.
Still think about how you can do better next time, absolutely. But you can also tell yourself, my effort really paid off. It's the effort that mattered. Okay? Excellent, excellent. Okay, so every once in a while this doesn't work. So I just want to share with you, actually if you can skip over that one, I think for time we'll talk about this stuff. Before I go, I can't do it in good conscience without telling you just a little bit about effective effort. Before I do that, look at your little handy mini poster I gave you. You can hang that right next to your bed. And every morning when you wake up, you can look at that and say, today is the day I'm going to have a growth mindset. Okay, so that's your own color picture for you. So I wanted to go back to the idea about exams or any other significant piece of work where you got a grade, but you didn't get any feedback. What can you do?
You can ask for help.
You can ask. Who's the best person to ask?
Your teacher.
Your teacher. What if that's just not going to be a good avenue for whatever reasons? Anywhere else you can go? Okay, there might be another teacher in the same grade or same course, right? That might be useful. A peer who's doing well in the class might be a good resource for you. But I want to talk just a little bit. I want you to think about the difference between studying and learning. In the interest of time, again, we're not going to talk about that question. But answer me this. Riddle me this. What would you work harder to do? Make an A on a test? Or if Mr. Fabic said, tomorrow I'm going to have you teach the class how to do this. I say this because I don't remember anything in Algebra 2. So I don't know what he would have you teach. But what if he was going to have you teach? Which one would you work harder for? The A? Really? Do you feel like you could get up and teach something?
Let me ask this a different way. When you were preparing your videos, did you prepare to do your videos knowing that there would be an audience of your peers and me when you were explaining something the same way that you prepare for a test?
You have already done this. You have an experience.
For some of you, I clearly know the answer because I watched your videos,
Well,
but
I mean,
most
and
of you...
what happens when that becomes live and you are open to questions and what ifs? You better know what you're talking about. I know so much more now that I am an instructor of my material than I ever did just as being a student. So here's a takeaway for that, which is that probably, and this is my upshot, my number one study strategy I would recommend to you, and I'm going to have a whole other slide about it here, is for you to teach someone else. And that someone else could be fictional, okay? I'll talk about that in a second. Here are a couple other really good study tips for you so that you can apply effective effort. Always ask these kinds of questions because these are the kinds of questions that will get your brain turning and thinking about the material more deeply. Why, how, and what if? The more you churn around the information you're supposed to be learning and you're doing it in a meaningful way, the more likely it is to stick in there and be easier to pull back out when you need it. So that's really good. Mini lectures, that's what I just talked about. I'm going to get up to that on the next slide. You're in math, so for math, chemistry, anything where you're computing answers, when you are given something and you have an answer there, maybe you're going back to an old problem or it's in the back of the book, don't cheat. Don't cheat yourself. Try to compute the answers first before you look at the answer or look for hints, because that's just going to help your brain to, if you do that, it'll help your brain to bypass the deeper, harder thinking that will help you learn the material. And hard thinking isn't fun. I know that. That's why I give up on the New York Times crossword puzzle every Sunday. Spend time on your class every day, because the more you practice and distribute that practice over several days, the more likely you are to remember the information that you've learned. Memorize anything you're told to memorize, and don't settle for 90% mastery in your head. Aim for 100%. So this is what I was talking about. You can just pretend to teach material someone else, put an empty chair in front of you, and talk through it. When you get yourself caught in a cul-de-sac or a place where you can't walk your way out of it, that's when you know you need to go back and learn that material just a little bit more. You can talk to your cat this way. You can talk to your dog that way. If you have an infant in the house, they could be really, really smart by the time you're 5. Or you could actually sit down with someone at over dinner, if they're very forgiving kind of person, tolerant, and teach them what you're learning. Okay? All right, so that's my spiel. I'm going to turn the rest of the class time, whatever is left, over to Mr. Fabic. And just to let you know, first of all, if you ever have questions about studying, not about Algebra 2, I will be no help to you there. That's my contact information. Remind me how I got to, how you know me, because I didn't get any names. But if you ever have a question about how can I study better, that's why my email is on the front. The Department of Curriculum and Instruction at ETSU, which is where most people who want to be teachers get their degrees from, that department, and the Department of oh gosh, they just changed their name, it's got like 4 things after it. Sports, management, recreation, and whatever. It'll be on the thing. They gave me some swag to hand out to you all, just as promotional stuff. So I'm gonna go around and kind of try to quietly distribute that stuff. Want this stuff?
Mine now. Okay, so 2 things. You picked up your full unit review when you walked in. Did everybody pick that up? You got 4.
Yeah, please.
Did anybody not pick up the full unit review?
Until they gave me
Okay, so I have your test grade. They've been